An open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
I think a new world order is emerging.
An inside job? How dare you? How dare you?
To create, so to say, mass-produced models of human beings arranged in some kind of a scientific caste system.
We shall go on to the end. We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall never surrender.
Good day, everybody. It's the 26th of April 2014. This is ucy.tv. Check out the website ucy.tv. Lots of shows going on over there. How you doing, everybody? I would welcome the people in the chat, but there's nobody there. So we'll get to that at a later point, I guess. The topic for today is a trivium. And we've got 2 PDFs open. I'll probably not be able to finish all of those. Good morning, Dan. How you doing, buddy? One is about more history, but this is more interesting than last week. And another is more directly tied to the trivium. So, but first we'll do this one. The results of the Prussian system, and we're talking about an education system here. The history of American education since the acceptance of the Prussian system is checkered with failure and elitism. From the time of John Dewey, who felt people should be defined by groups and associations, and who believed that people who were well read were dangerous, to our own era. So from there to our own era. Good morning, James. Education has suffered. We have in this day and age the disheartening statistic showing 33% of our nation's college graduates can't read or calculate well enough to perform the jobs they seek. That's really bad. Hey, Dal, how you doing, buddy? Working against the concepts and principles the founding fathers provided in the Constitution, the Prussian system has produced a gradual but statistically provable decline in literacy and intellectual capability of typical Americans. Yeah. We can track the 5 different stages that American education has gone through. So, see? From 1750 to 1852, the idea of government-controlled schools was conceived. 1852 to 1900, it was politically debated in state legislatures. Alright? So, in 1900 to 1920, we had government-controlled, industrialized factory-modeled schooling. 1920 to 1960, schools changed from being academically focused to becoming socialized. And 1960 to the present, schools became, this is interesting, psychological experimental labs. Alright? So, here in the Netherlands, I don't know for how long this has been, but it's the same. Not that the people in Den Haag, the political capital, really care about our constitution, but even in our constitution it says government is responsible for education. Now that is a bad thing. It really is. Because in that way you will only teach children in such a way that it will enforce and accept the whatever the government says. You see, so that's really a bad thing. Let's see, James. Why, if there's a reason why I should read this. If you can tell me why, James, that is important, then I might read it, what you pasted in the chat. But I don't see the relevance here, so. In the year 1941, the Defense Department was preparing for World War II. In testing 18 million men between 1941 and 1944, the Defense Department found 96% of those tested were illiterate. During the same period, among African Americans who were tested, the majority of whom have had only 3 years of schooling, 80% were found to be literate. By literate we mean Americans, both white and black, could read with understanding. Yeah. Oh, blah, blah. All right, James. During 20 years later, around 1970, the same test was used at the time of a new war. Among the Vietnamese draftees and enlistees who were tested for literacy, only 27% were found to be capable of reading with understanding the material which they needed in order to serve in the armed forces. Only 27%. Can you believe that? Again, the major difference between American soldiers in the 1940s and 1970s was more schooling for the latter group at a higher cost to taxpayers. Considering that billions of taxpayers' dollars were spent over the time from the 1940s to the present, increased by some 350%, with totally unacceptable results despite all the increased spending. In 1996, statistics were prepared by the National Association of Education for Progress showed that some 44% of African Americans cannot read at all. Alright, that's a misnomer. African Americans. Alright? That's really stupid to say something like that. Okay, I can understand if you say black Americans, right? But African Americans is just stupid. Those are two different areas. So it's a contradiction in itself, you see. You're either African or you're American, not both at the same time. The same set of statistics show that the literacy among whites had quadrupled. That's illiteracy, alright? Incredibly, hey Jules, good morning. Incredibly, educating Americans continues to cost massive amounts of taxpayers' dollars to achieve unacceptable and devastatingly poor results. Alright, so I wanted to read that bit for you. An American hero? Well, that's what you say. I'm not so sure about these people. Anyway, that's what it says here. An American hero, Abraham Lincoln, was very outspoken against the Prussian idea that ordinary people should not be taught the same way as the privileged class. Alright? So you see there's also a kind of caste system already in place, except that they call it class. He said such a concept was un-American, that this country is built by its common people. Yeah, is that so? God created all men as equals and they deserve to be educated in the same manner, rich and poor alike. When he says this country was built by its common people, well, yeah, in the sense that they put the energy into it. But, yeah, that's your own fault, Dan. When you look at the founding fathers, for instance, I wouldn't consider them common people, you know? And so why is it that they kind of had to decide what this country is going to be based on? Okay, that doesn't make sense to me, anyway. James says Abraham Lincoln destroyed the Constitution. Yeah, I don't know about that. I'm not so very well versed in American history. First of all, we didn't get that at school. And second of all, I only know about the very short history of the United States. Doesn't go back that far. Let's see, the subject of the trivium. Alright, this threefold method reflects the natural human psychology for assimilating knowledge. See, that's why this is such a very important quote-unquote topic, because it's not really a topic, the trivium. Why? Because it reflects the natural human psychology for assimilating knowledge. In other words, it reflects how your mind works. You see? And since the mass of the people suffer from mind control, this is important, you see? If you would know how your own mind works and get yourself acquainted with the fallacies, you wouldn't be you wouldn't be mind controlled. All right? One, rules of general grammar to concisely organize a body of knowledge. Hey dog, how you doing, buddy? Alright, so one, rules of general grammar to concisely organize a body of knowledge. What is this? This is raw, factual data. You should, make sure that it's factual. Another thing is rules of general grammar, alright? So this is not special grammar, right? One, the trivium is grammar, logic, rhetoric, or in other words, knowledge, understanding, and wisdom. However, the first one, grammar, can be split up in two. You have special grammar and general grammar, okay? We're not very concerned with special grammar. This is how words relate to each other in a specific language. Hey, Crack, how you doing, buddy? People are getting in the chat room. Awesome. At least I don't have the feeling I'm talking to a wall. Yeah. So, but general grammar is what we are concerned with here. And the best way I have been able to explain it yet is that it's building blocks. And please pardon the Masonic terminology here. But that's what they are. They are building blocks. All right? Of a specific topic. Like, for instance, take my computer over there. You get a screwdriver, you open it, and you unscrew everything that you can find and take it apart, and you lay all those parts on the floor. And then you start naming every individual part. Alright, so one is a processor, another is a jack for a microphone, then there is a ventilator in there, and a hard drive, and a motherboard, and so on. Yeah, hard disk, motherboard. Do you get it? Sexism. Anyway, naming those things is general grammar. That's the basic factual data that you're working with. Then you need to have an understanding of each separate part. Alright, you have to know what the processor does, what the ventilator does, what the hard disk does, and so on. And then you have an understanding of the data. Then you start putting the pieces together, which is the second part. Alright? 2, well, it's kind of tying to the second part. It's not really 100% the second part. So, but 2, rules of formal logic, or Aristotelian logic, with which to produce understanding by finding non-contradictory relationships within the body of knowledge and to objective reality. Alright, so when we take the example of the computer and the parts, you see that there are relationships between those parts. One fits here and doesn't fit there. You don't stick the hard drive onto the ventilator, for instance. You see? That would be contradictory. So, the rules of formal logic, the most important thing about that is eliminating contradictions. And there's 2 ways in which that is possible. There are probably more, but I'm going to give you 2. One is you have a misunderstanding of the data itself. So, for instance, if you say the hard disk is computing things, all right, that's a misunderstanding. That's left to the processor, you see? That's a way to, that's a contradiction, okay? So another contradiction is, when facts are incorrect, when you have a body of knowledge, you have different parts, different building blocks, and when you try to put them together, they don't seem to fit, which means that your building block is incorrect, alright? Your data is, flawed. Alright, so you need to, if that happens, you need to go back to grammar stage, back to rule 1, and make sure that your data is in order. And then 3, rules of classical rhetoric to produce wisdom with which to cogently express and use the understanding garnered from the body of knowledge. See how rhetoric, the 3rd step, has the first 2 in it? Alright? Rules of classical rhetoric to produce wisdom. Wisdom means action. You will see that in the rest of the sentence. Rules of classical rhetoric to produce wisdom with which to cogently express. Alright, that's what we usually understand when we talk about rhetoric. Expressing, right? With which to cogently express and use. See, there's the action part. Use the understanding garnered from the body of knowledge. And the understanding is, of course, the step 2, and the body of knowledge is step 1. So you see the trivium is 1, in a sense. All right. The trivium as an age-appropriate division for training and educating in childhood and adolescence. This takes account of the changing capacities and instruments of study, the mind, as it matures into adulthood. So children start out with grammar, ages 4 to 9. Training in self-discipline, memory work, and primary informal presentation of language-based subjects, as in spelling, phonetic reading, foreign languages, and absorbing factual data. Introduction to elementary numbers and arithmetic, addition, subtraction, and multiplication tables. Yeah. 2. Logic level, ages 10 to 14. Education and self-instruction in analytical subjects, formal logic, advanced mathematics, literary, historical and scientific analysis, and primary composition. Alright, so 1 and 2, those form, that's what it says here, the art of learning. 3. Rhetoric level, ages 15 to 17. Self-expression of what was and is being learned and understood by use of advanced, original, literary and or mathematical composition. The student is now prepared for a lifetime of learning by using the trivium method as a pattern of how to think properly. Alright, Gino Denning explains this very nicely. He says that once you've acquainted yourself with the trivium, it starts running in the background. And whatever comes your way is going through that program, so to speak. Alright, well, I use the words running to the background. That's Gino Denning's terminology. That reminds you of computers, right? That's why I use the word program. It's kind of a firewall, you see? Anything that comes into your mind is first run through the firewall, which is the trivium. So you won't be able, it will not be able for media to indoctrinate you, and lead you on the wrong path, to mind control you. It will not be possible anymore, because there's a firewall in place, you see? The trivium has been used not only for learning, but also for teaching. The Dame School, which provided primary education to children ages 6 to 17, in one room with one instructor, was a complete and efficient system for the dissemination and debate of knowledge. However, the single instructor was not unaided in his teaching chores. The injurious use of upperclassmen to help instruct lowerclassmen was part of this system. Yeah. Upperclassmen and lowerclassmen, right? You're born into it, so to speak. Doesn't matter how you are as a human being, right? You're already put in some kind of class depending on how you were born. That is the same as an Indian caste system, people. Alright, let's see. The trivium, a means for guidance in how to think, is a classification tool of those modes which gather knowledge of what to think. Yeah, I guess so. See, because if you've been taught how to think, you will automatically be able to decide for yourself what to think. You see, today, the media and schooling and other so-called authorities, like experts, will tell you what to think. You're no longer taught how to think. See, let's try this again. The trivium, a means for guidance in how to think, as a classification tool of those modes which gather knowledge of what to think. Ah, like that. Okay. So 1, the literary of mythopoeic, that's mythical and poetic, mode uses analogical methods to elucidate phenomena. Alright, and they did that in a very bad way, but that's because they didn't have an understanding. That's as far as I can tell anyway, that's the reason there are myths around in the first place. You see, because the people, when they started using their minds, they found out that the world seemed to be full of miracles. They call them miracles because they did not understand the laws of nature. Right? They had to then come up with stories about these natural forces. And those are the mythological stories. So that's kind of like the first science. Right? That's where science starts, in mythology. 2, the philosophic mode uses the logical methods to explain phenomena. 3, the scientific mode uses the scientific method to gain knowledge, understanding, and the use of phenomena through experimental demonstration. That's empiric. Now he's going into India. Interesting. Ancient India, 4th and 3rd millennia BC, or possibly earlier, appears to be the birthplace of the institution detailed above as the Prussian model. Really? Okay, that's possible, because the caste system is also from there, you see. Even the ratios of population specialization were derived from the Indian system of social castes. Yeah, you see. The Indian Brahmanic system specified 4 hereditary castes in descending order of cleanliness. Alright? Their term, it's an Indian term. We should read importance here, it says. In fact, the entire system was based on varying levels of education. No. It wasn't based on education. It was based on where you were born in, what family you were born in. It's like today, people. Look, our king today, he became king because he was the son of a queen. It's not so hard to understand, is it? It depends on the family which you are born and what kind of caste you belong. Not that I agree with that, but that's how it works. Blah, blah. So let's see who's in the chat, guys. Cracker, welcome. Dan, what's up? Another Del. And Jules, and Meat Dog, and Akbar. What's up, Buggy? And For Ons, welcome everybody in the chat. Alright, so, the first one, yeah, I know this by heart, so anyway, well, let's see what he has to say here. The first one is the Brahman caste, those born into the priestly, judicial teacher caste, were the ultimate authority figures in society and directed its course of action. Alright, that is not correct. Okay? The Brahman caste is indeed the priestly caste, but they were in no way, as far as I've been taught anyway, in charge of the judicial system. That's left to the Kshatriyas. Alright? There's a story, I can tell you about that. Long, long ago. Yeah. In India, there was a king, I believe his name was Pandu. I'm not sure though, sometimes I get these names confused. What's his name? No, his name wasn't Pandu, his name was Dhritarashtra. Now I'm sure about that. Alright, so one day, long, long ago, about 5,000 years ago, before the war of Kurukshetra, there was a blind king. His name was Dhritarashtra. And he was sitting in his palace, and there was some visitors. Alright, he had a brother. The brother's name was Pandu, if I remember correct. The brother's Pandu, he made a mistake. He thought he saw a wild animal, and he shot it in the jungle. But the wild animal turned out to be a transformed mythical being. All right, that was actually more human-like. I'm not quite sure if I'm telling this correct, if it was like a mythical being or if it was a priest actually. I'm not sure if it was a brahmana, in other words, or a rishi. Alright, anyway, it was a mythical being, I say, because it was able to transform itself into a tiger. And so this King Pandu, he shot the tiger, which was not a tiger, and so he punished himself by stepping down from the throne and leaving it to his blind brother. Alright? And so this blind brother, Dhritarashtra, is sitting there in his court, and he has some company. One side of this company are the sons of Pandu. Alright? One of them is Arjuna. Arjuna is a Kshatriya. The other part is his own son, for which his name I don't remember. Alright? And so they're sitting there, and all of a sudden this servant of the king comes in, and the king himself is also Kshatriya. Alright? Kshatriya means the warrior. Alright? So you're in the army. Alright? So there's a whole bunch of Kshatriyas there at the court, and the servant of the king comes in, and he's bringing 4 people. And the accusation is that these 4 people killed a man. And so he says, the servant of the king says, they should be punished, and please, king, would you tell us how to punish these people, right? And the king thought that, well, this is a good time to test the people that are in here. And he was specifically thinking about Arjuna, the son of Pandu, and his own son, whose name I don't remember. And so he asked his son. He said, well, how do you think these people should be punished? You see, that's the judicial system. It's decided by Kshatriyas. And the son of Dhritarashtra says, well, they should all be killed. Just kill them, go, now. And then he asked Arjuna, well, what do you think should be done with these people? And Arjuna says, well, these are 4 people. And I see that one of them is a brahmana, another is a kshatriya, another is a vaishya, and the last one is a sudra. And he had 4 different punishments for all of these. You see, he said the brahmana cannot be killed. So, I don't know exactly what the punishment for him was, but it wasn't much, I can tell you. Okay, and so the kshatriya, he had to go to jail for 4 years. Because he was a warrior and he should know better than to kill a human being needlessly. Alright? Then the fourth one, the Vaishya, he got even punished more severely. He had to go to jail for 8 years. And then the Sudra, he was even punished more, jail for 16 years. You see? So it is the Kshatriyas that decided how to punish people, and also the punishment differs depending on what class you are from. Alright, so let's continue this. The Brahmin caste, those born into the priestly teacher caste, were the ultimate authority figures in society and directed its course and action. Okay, that is correct. They were the teachers and the utmost authorities. Alright, why were they the authority? Probably, and I'm not quite sure about this, but probably because they were the ones that could read. You see, and the whole population was indoctrinated. I'm not so sure about that reading, by the way. It's difficult to tell, because this is 5,000 years ago, right? And the thing is that at that time, the scriptures were put into writing. They claim, the Indians themselves claim, that before the time, it was memorized. There was no need for scripture, because people, if they were told something, they could memorize it for the rest of their lives. Alright, so the probable explanation for why these Brahmanas were authorities is because they were the ones told about the laws. Alright, so they were the authority. They were the ones taught about the history that had happened before the war of Kurukshetra, so before 5,000 years ago. Alright, this caste, the Brahman caste, was taught the full manner and systematic learning and thinking. Yeah, see? That's why they are the authority, because they were taught the full manner and systematic learning and thinking. The precepts of the integrated trivium. See how old trivium is, guys? I said this to you guys last week, remember? It's not something of the last 500 years or the last 2,000 years. No, it's much older. Because of this training, they were the only people in the culture who had a view of the society's big picture. About 0.5% of the population belonged to this caste. You see? It's a small percentage of people that rule the whole rest of the society. Then 2 is the Kshatriya caste. Those born into warrior caste were figures of power. You see, now he says it himself, that you were born into it. Doesn't matter who you are personally, if you happen to be born in a poor family, that's your bad luck, that's your karma, as they put it, right? Don't even get me started on karma, that just makes my blood boil. Alright, so the Kshatriya caste, those who were born into the warrior caste, or the king caste, of which there were many, by the way, 5,000 years ago. India was not one country, it was made up of a lot of kingdoms. Were the figures of power, and were the force behind the dictates of the informed authoritarian caste. Yeah, that's correct. The Kshatriya caste would get told by the Brahmanas what to enforce. That's where the word power is tied in here, see? The warrior caste was always considered potentially dangerous to the authoritarian caste because the warrior's primary focus was physical coercion. This coercion could easily be turned on the caste of authority to assume total control of society if it, that's the warrior caste, so chose. For this reason, the holy caste taught the warriors only the means to partially think, as in case of the 19th century Prussian system. That is, perhaps one of the two precepts of the trivium were emphasized, or all three were presented but out of sequence, as a subject unto themselves, and without the integrating aspect of valid systematic thought being stressed. About 5 or 6% of the general population were members of the warrior caste. The executive, the police, and the military branches of political society. Alright. The Vaishya caste, those born into the commercial, the merchant, artisan caste, or the agricultural side of society, were nominally in charge of the material wealth derived from economic activity. They coordinated the business, the trade, the employment of productive society. The members of this caste were taught only the grammar of thought, the specialized materials, alright, the servile arts, like they would teach those people how to melt steel, how to make steel from ores, or silver, or whatever, you know. There's other things that they were taught, like we do not think of highly today, but in those days it was considered a war art, and you're going to be surprised by this, but it's dancing. The members of this caste were taught only the grammar of thought, alright? In order that they be politically uncritical role functionaries in society. Approximately 4 to 5% of the population belongs to this class. The last one, he's mentioning here, is the Sudra. That's the correct name anyway. Those born into the menial caste provided the servants and laborers to the other three castes. This caste was not given any formal instruction. Alright? The members not being twice born or initiated into their life's station in adolescence after their period of education. We signify this today by a ceremony called graduation. Alright. About 87% or almost all the rest of the general population belong to this caste. The very small percentage of the population that were born into the lower spectrum of this fourth caste were labeled untouchables. Yeah, that's kind of like a fifth class. And performed either the very unsavory tasks of society, sanitation work, etc., or were the common beggars. Interestingly, after coming to a comprehensive understanding of the hierarchical structure of their social order, a number of this group of untouchable later became the international bands of traveling societies, which are known as the Roma or Romani people. They are most commonly known to us as gypsies. Yeah. That's what he says. I don't know if that's correct. I've heard other stories about the origins of these people. These basic divisions in society have manifested in various cultures throughout the ages. Alright, an example he's giving here. Ancient Egypt developed priestly and warrior castes. Yeah, That's correct. This probably has to do with another myth. This is also 5,000 years ago or more. Alright, so whenever they say 5,000 years ago here in this PDF, or when I say it, keep in mind that it could be 10,000 or 12,000 years ago also that this happened. Because, you know, it kind of turns like mythical if you go back like 2,000 years. And so we're not really sure what happened then. Anything beyond 2,000 years is mythical. And you have to ask yourself if the dates are really correct. Alright, so ancient Egypt developed priestly and warrior caste. This probably has to do with another myth. Around 5,000 years ago, there were two gods born on earth. One of them was called Krishna and the other one was called Rama. Now, keep in mind, this is a myth, guys. The Krishna one is more known because he was there at the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Rama is more known for other things. Alright? One of the things he is known for is the fact that at a certain point, and this is being warned about in what we just read 5 minutes ago, at a certain point the Kshatriyas, they didn't listen to the Brahmanas anymore. And so God got very angry, and this Rama, he lived for a very long time, and he chased all of the Kshatriyas out of India. He chased them all out. Alright, supposedly he did this with his club. Yeah. Alright, so he's smashing all the Kshatriyas to bits, and he did this for 10 generations. The thing is that the myth is that they fled to Egypt, from India to Egypt. You see? So that could be a reason why there's still the same caste system in India, in Egypt. To cope with the potential problem of a rebellious warrior caste, the priests selected their titular leader, their pharaoh, from among the warrior caste itself. See? Even then, you know, as in our short European history, kings are crowned by the priest. It's the priest that decides who gets to be king at a certain point. Or it's the priest that decides that, yes, this dude can be king or not. Once selected, this leader was initiated into the mysteries of the knowledgeable priestly class. The centerpiece mystery being the integrated trivium, most likely. Of course, the deeper mysteries were formologically communicated. Is that so? So, like, take this mushroom and you will be initiated into the mysteries. Yeah, right. Blah, blah. European society in the Middle Ages was divided into orators, bellators, and laborators. The church was the dwelling of the orators. It's a priestly class. These were the men who had been given the sequential instruction from grammar to logic and on into becoming accomplished rhetoricians and orators. From whom did they get this? Is my question, because we're talking Middle Ages here. And, you know, they also say that before the Middle Ages, the trivium was lost. You see? So who taught them this? When I say the trivium was lost, it probably means that it wasn't really lost, but just occulted. You see, it was made secret. Alright? 2. The bellicose men of society were the kings, princes, and various noblemen. Yeah, right, noble. Who executed aggressive actions on their own behalf in concurrence with the guidelines of the church. Yeah, the word church, by the way, is interesting. Comes from Kirk. Captain Kirk! The word Kirk comes from Ceres, which is Roman. Alright, Ceres was a mythical figure, and she would draw people into her house. Yeah, and then enchant them. You see, to put a spell on them. Alright, spelling. Get it? And then she would possibly turn them into pigs and eat them, or she would let them work for her. You know, when they come and pass on the bag in the church today, you know. At times, acted as coercive auxiliaries of the church itself. Alright. 3. Laboratories were composed of farmers, merchants, tradesmen, artisans, serfs, and freeman laborers and servants who lived under the authority of the church. How does that work, right? Freeman laborers under the authority of the church? Excuse me? How does that work? How can you be free if you're under the authority of the church? Does that make sense to you guys? Continuing, and at the pleasure of the various monarchies. In France, they are called the 3 estates. The 4th estate, added later, is the press, the media. Oh, really? Huh. Alright. That continues a little further, and then it starts with the essay of 1947 by Dorothy Sayers. I've already done that twice, so we're not going to do that here now. A good book to read, and you'll have to excuse the Christian influences there, so you have to know how to read this, is a book by Sister Miriam Joseph. It's an introduction to the 3 branches of the trivium. So, Sister Miriam Joseph, if you want to buy that book, you should do so. Alright, scrolling down. Here's another one. Introduction to Logic, a recorded lecture course given by Dr. Leonard Peikoff. That's Leonard, L-E-O, which is Leo, which is lion. Dr. Leonard, L-E-O-N-A-R-D, Peikoff, that's P-E-I-K-O-F-F, in the 1970s. Now, also again, when you listen to this, use your own brain. But yeah, you should get it. It's important stuff. He explains about logic and other things. Hey there, Ruth. How you doing, buddy? Welcome! This is the most appropriate constructed exposition of the subject of logic to which a layperson can relate. Okay, what's important about his lecture is that he will show you why subjectivism is nonsense. Alright? So he's an objectivist himself. Objectivism. I don't know too much about it, but it looks like I, as a philosopher, tend to lean more to objectivism than anything else that I know about. Alright, it's quite simple. There is one reality, Alright, if you're gonna start denying that, you might as well not speak at all. Alright? There is one reality. And only one. Not 2 or 3 or however many people there are. One reality. Just as there is one truth. Not 2, because that would make it contradictory, you see? Alright, so one truth, one reality, one existence. And he explains about that pretty nicely. So check him out. It's not too expensive, it's only like $8 or so. You can get it at Orion. What's her name again? Help me out here, guys. That woman, Ryan. There's an institute. Website, what's her name again? There's also a movie based on her. I'm so bad with names. And I don't remember the name, again, of that movie either. Gee. Ayn Rand, that's the one I mean. Yeah, Ayn Rand. Type that in Google. There's an institute, I believe it's called, for Ayn Rand. Something like that. Or AynRand.org, or something like that. And there you will be able to order this Leonard Peikoff lecture. I suggest you all do that, because it's really important. It will help you clear your mind. Alright. It is presented in plain English and without superfluous content which might detract from the real world applications of logic. Yeah, well, I'm not quite so sure about that. So, keep using your own brain when you listen to this guy, because he makes mistakes also. Regrettably, this is an expensive item selling at $355. No, it's not anymore. You can get it for $8. Alright? Blah, blah, blah. Ayn Rand's bookstore, is it? Online order. Only $8, guys. Ayn Rand. Oh, by the way, I might as well say this about her anyway. She doesn't have full picture. She's still stuck, what I can tell from what I've listened to her, in a false left-right political paradigm, So keep that in mind. If you ever listen to her, she's not quote-unquote awake, as far as I can tell. Let's see, here's a list of common logical fallacies. Should we do those? This is not your usual lists of logical fallacies. Oh, here it is. Let's see what he says, right? Rules of definition. No? Yes. Rules of definition. The following two subjects are concerned with the manner in which the human mind processes information. It either mentally takes information apart or mentally combines information together to form generalization. Okay, alright, this is also known as inductive and deductive. Now, I'm not exactly sure again which one is inductive and which one is deductive, but one is taking apart. I think that's deductive, and combining is inductive, but that could be the other way around, guys. Rules of deductive reasoning. Oh, well, we'll probably get it explained here. making new particular observation with similar or the same characteristics to either previously made observations, to other previously made observations, and placing the new particular observation into a known general category, in which the observation that had been made previously are already placed. This is reasoning from all to some, taking apart, deductive, taking apart, okay? Listen guys, this whole topic about deductive and inductive reasoning is explained very well by Gene O'Denning when I interviewed him. So type into YouTube, Solvinur, Trivium, Gene O'Denning, and you will get a good explanation of this. That's Geneodening, Gene O'Denning. So, next is inductive reasoning, making several separate observations with similar or the same characteristic and forming them into a new general category, or to form a generalization. This is reasoning from some to all, combining or putting together. Awesome. See? The topics listed above are the standard topics covered in the introduction logic courses. Yeah, I haven't come that far yet, but he apparently does explain also about that, Peacock, so. Alright, scrolling down a little bit, guys. Let's see where we can continue. I'm thinking of picking up this other PDF. This is about logical fallacies, of which we've discussed before. Rules of definition. The cognitive role of definitions. Genus and differentia. The method of formulating valid definitions. The method of formulating valid definitions. 5 Aristotelian rules of definition. This is more of a summary of what is being taught by Peacock. Alright. Let's see, I'm thinking, yeah, we're gonna skip to the other PDF, guys. There we go, let's put this one away. Poof! There it is. This is the next one. Hosted by Tragedy and Hope. Edited by Tony Myers. Literacy is a form of slavery until a systematic form of critical thinking is practiced by the reader. Yeah, I'm kinda lucky in that sense. I questioned everything. As soon as I for as far as I can remember back, I always questioned everything. So that kinda helped me in critical thinking. So that's one thing to do, guys. Question everything and figure it out for yourself. Don't be accepting things just because somebody else says it. That's called, what's that called? Let me get it here. Because I have it written down. Opala. Argumentum ad verecundium. Alright, which is appeal to authority. Doesn't have to be an expert, it can be anybody. Alright, so, take care, dog. Don't let anybody tell you, what the content of your mind should be. You should decide that for yourself. Otherwise, generally speaking, you're committing a fallacy known as verecundium. Alright? Appeal to authority. And that doesn't mean that you should never listen to anybody. Alright? If your doctor says you have this kind of sickness and you need to go to the hospital, I don't know, maybe you broke your leg or something, you know, it's best to listen to him. Okay? In that case, it is not considered an appeal to authority, because you yourself also know if you break your leg, you need to go to the hospital. So even if you are told by experts how you should act in certain circumstances, you should always check if what the expert says holds ground. You know, even an expert should be able to explain to you in simple terms why certain actions should be taken. Alright, so when you look at the global warming nonsense, for instance, with all these experts telling you you shouldn't emit CO2, in other words, stop breathing, or in other words, just die, you know, those people should be put to court for inciting people to commit suicide, because that's what happens, you know. People do commit suicide because of this crap. Alright. Let's continue here. I don't know, I think something happened to my PDF. Where were we? It skipped something. Here we go. This is where we were. Literacy, and try this again. Literacy is a form of slavery until a systematic form of critical thinking is practiced by the reader. We'll be discussing the relevance of this observation for the remainder of this lesson. And if you don't currently have a systematic form of critical thinking, don't be alarmed, as you'll be provided with your own lockpicking set in the form of the lost tools of learning. And from there, you can unlock your own potential at your own pace. If you want to free your mind, you first have to come to understand the process by which words were used to program and control your mind in the first place. It's very important what he says here, guys. Thereby, you will have the ability to rewrite the programming in your own image. That's on an individual level. But what about humanity as a whole? The status quo, Akbar says, by the way, I'm gonna skip from the PDF to chat for a minute. Akbar says, English is a form of slavery. Yeah. You could simply say, Akbar, language is a form of slavery. You know, that's why it's important that we make our own words. No, well, Iota says, words formulate reality. You know, formulate sounds like giving form to. That's not how it works. Alright? Words can explain reality, but words do not decide what reality is like. Reality is what it is, regardless of how you think about it. Alright? So keep that in mind. I don't understand exactly what you mean with formulate, because the word form is in there, right? Akbar says English was formulated to enslave humanity. Well, that goes for any language. It doesn't matter. It's the same for any language. That's how they control us in the first place. By using language. You know, it's not for nothing that the media plays such an important role in society today. Well, then let's get a definition of terms in order, Iota. I mean, it's fine if we disagree, but before we decide that we disagree with each other, let's get a definition of terms in order. What do you mean formulate? Could that be explain? When you say English, what does it say? Words formulate reality. What do you mean formulate? What is your definition of formulate? I would say words explain reality. Alright? So let's see. If your definition of formulate is in order, then maybe the sentence words formulate reality is in order, but, you know, I'm questioning that. It's a spell book, says Akbar, and that's very correct. It's a spell book to put a spell on you, to mind control you. You see? Language is a nasty thing. Yeah. In Dutch we say taal. That doesn't tie in any way etymologically to the word language. Let's find that out where the word language comes from in the first place anyway, guys. Google etymological dictionary. Etymological dictionary. Alright, here we go. Let's type in language. Language. Words. What is said. Conversation. Talk. From Old French. Language. 12th century. From Latin. Aha. Linguisticum. Linguistics. So language, linguistics. They tie together, yeah. From Latin, lingua, which means tongue. Also speech, language. Yeah, that's what they say, right? He speaks in different tongues. The form with you developed in Anglo-French, meaning a language, is from 1300, also used in Middle English dialects. Alright. Let's see where, do we have a Dutch? Yeah, we do. But I'm not sure if it's free. Let's see, Nederlands, etymologisch, woordenboek. That's Dutch etymological dictionary, woordenboek, word. You hear the etymological tie there, right? Word is English, woord is Dutch, woordenboek, word book, or in other words, dictionary. Let's see if we can type in the word language here. And spoken word. Verhaal, which means story. Doesn't exactly say where it's from here. It's from tale. See, there is an etymological tie. Dutch is taal for language, but you also have the word tale in English. Right? Also think of the Dutch word getal, which ties to the word tale, but getal means number. Interesting, huh? T-A-L-E, or tale. Getal, which is Dutch for number. Interesting. Etymological ties between language and number, you see? Also tied to, apparently, aantal, which means how many. Because there's a word tal is in there. To tell. See, there's another tie. The Dutch word taal, which means language. You guys also have the word tel. Not only tale, but also tell. Yeah. Yeah. But do we know now? Still don't know where it comes from. Interesting. Blah blah. Yeah. All right. That's enough. That's enough of that. All right. Yeah, the Dutch. It's a strange language for you guys to hear, right? No, it's not that there as far as I know anyway. Yeah. Did iota formula applies to forms? Yeah, exactly. That's what I thought. Iota formula applies to forms. So when you say language forms reality, what you're saying is depending on how we speak, that's what reality is. Doesn't work like that. Reality is what it is, regardless of how you feel about it or how you think about it, regardless of your consciousness. Reality is what it is. Because you see, reality was there before you were born. And you are born into reality. Blah, blah. Alright. So, let's see, anything else in the chat that I want to address? Nope, I don't think so. Yeah, alright. So let's pick this up. The status quo of our existing state of affairs amounts to this. Human actions are in conflict with human needs for survival. Yeah? The perfect storm of irrationality that we're all experiencing has the three major components which create its devastating effects. Yeah, prepositions. That's another word we should put in the dictionary, iota. Let's copy that. It's another important word. Dictionary. Dictionary. English. Yes. Dictionary.com. Then paste that into there and say search. Preposition. Noun. Grammar. Any member of a class of words found in many languages that are used before nouns. Pronouns or other substantive to form, they're talking about formulate, right? To form phrases functioning as modifiers or verbs, nouns or adjectives, and that typically express a spatial, temporal, or other relationship. As in on, by, to, since. Origin, apparently 1315, 1400, Middle English. Preposition. Session. A putting before, a prefix. Alright. Quasi-prepositional is also there, non-prepositional. Preposition, to position in advance or beforehand. To preposition, oh that's another word, that's preposition, not preposition. Preposition to troops in anticipated trouble spots. Alright. History of the word. 1388 from Latin. Prepositionem. Putting before. From prea, which means before. Penore means to put. Position, place. Penore is put, set, or place. Alright, taking apart that word. Blah, 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 blah. Next. the three major components that is creating this devastation is 1, censorship or secrecy, which is the act of occulting information. Yeah, that's another reason why language is so dangerous to us, because they are keeping so many things secret, you know. They don't talk about it. It's not mentioned, which means that the language used then in place of that is meant to mind control you. You see? 2, corruption of education, which conveniently leaves you intellectually self-defenseless. Yeah. You want to get self-defense for your mind intellectually? Just question everything. It's as simple as that. Question everything. 3, absence of compassionate communication, which prevents constructive action. See there, there are actually 1, 2, and 3 here are actually grammar, logic, and rhetoric. You see, 1, grammar, it ties to it in the sense that they are occulting the data. You see, 2. You are left intellectually self-defenseless, which means you're not using logic, you see. And 3, absence of compassionate communication, that's your rhetoric, which prevents constructive action, which is again rhetoric. Action, rhetoric, those are 2 of the same things. Ending secrecy and revealing the truth does not automatically give people critical thinking and non-violent communication skills. Providing intellectual self-defense does not automatically prevent censorship. Nor does it teach one how to communicate. Learning how to communicate does not end secrecy. No. In most cases, you know, when you are taught this stuff, because remember guys, this is not for ordinary people nowadays, the trivium. It's only meant for ruling class. So if you know your rhetoric, it would probably lead to more secrecy. You see, they know exactly what not to say. Nor does it provide critical thinking. To free our minds, we must take 3 steps and repeat those steps over and over. Yeah. Let's begin by defining 13 concepts, so that we're all on the same page. Let's see, we got 37 minutes left or so. We can at least get through these definitions here. Axiom of non-aggression is an ethical stance with which asserts that aggression is inherently illegitimate. Aggression is defined as the initiation of physical force against persons or property. Think of your government. So, Mark Passio explained this a while ago very nicely. He said, let's take a look at the word representative, guys. That's what Mark Passio is saying, right? So I'm just repeating him here. He does it very nicely. He says that, he explains that, if you send a representative to an auction, and for stamps, for instance, and you say to the guy who's representing you that you should bid maximum of $700 for this one stamp, then he's not allowed to bid $800. You see, it's as simple as that. However, when we have a so-called representative democracy, what the people in government do is way out of line. I am not allowed to do what the government does. So that doesn't make any sense, does it? It is not a representation of me that is being done here. You know, it's supposed to be that the people vote these others in power, and then they say, well, they're represented. No. If they were really truly represented, then those people in power would not be able to do what you and I cannot do. You see? An example he gave is, for instance, and this is again how words are used to control you. And an example he gave is like, if I take $100 from you, and I go outside and I give 10 to a teacher, and I give 10 to a woman with a child, and I give 10 to a workless person, and I give 10 to the fire department people, you know, you would call it stealing. I stole $100 from you. But if the government does it, you call it taxes. You see you see how mind controlled people are? Just by using words? It's very important you understand that, guys. Again, if they were truly representatives, they should not be allowed to steal from you. Alright, let's try this. Aggression is defined as the initiation of physical force against persons or property, the threat of such or fraud upon persons or their property. In contrast to pacifism, the non-aggression principle does not preclude violent self-defense. The principle is deontological or rule-based, ethical stance. Alright, let's see here. Somebody in chat says, there is no constants except for change, he says. Well, that's not true, again. Truth is a constant. Truth does not change. If it were changing, it would be illusionary. Truth stays the same, whether it is 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago. Truth is truth. You see, there you have a constant. Another constant would be existence. Another constant would be reality. Those things do not change. Reality was here before you were born. You coming into existence does not mean that reality has changed. So there are constants. They are of a philosophical nature, though. If you're saying there are no constants, just look. They call the speed of light constant, but if they start measuring it 1,000 times, you get 1,000 different values. Then yeah, it's not a constant. Alright? Cyclical? What is cyclical? What is cyclical about truth? Iota says, truth changes like the seasons, with a question mark. No, it doesn't. What was true 1,000 years ago is still true today. Yeah, I guess I could claim that. Yeah. Alright. Akbar says, truth is truth. Science keeps changing because it claims there are constants where there are no constants. Yeah. And then he says, truth is beyond science. Well, I would, again, ask again, science, alright, if you look at a word, and we'll type it into etymological dictionary again, because as far as I know, that word ties to knowledge. Alright, so let's see what it says on the dictionary, in the etymological dictionary, control paste. Science, see, mid-14th century, what is known? Knowledge. And knowledge always ties to truth. Always. If it were not tied to truth, then it's illusionary, and then you cannot call it knowledge. Yes, Joe, says, our perception changes. That's correct. That's why there is a difference between perceiving and reality. Alright? Oh, lol, goed. The facts stay the same, says Joe. Yeah. Exactly. And it doesn't matter if it's 1,000 years ago or 2,000 years ago. You see? Sarcasm is difficult to convey in a chat room. Yes, Iota. That's true. You could try calling in. If you want to do so, just send me a Skype contact request at Solvinur, Solvinur, and I'll get you on the air. You can say what you want to say. That then does not prove the constant property of gravity. First of all, gravity, I've asked this other people, and they dare call themselves scientists, right? But he couldn't give me an answer. When I tried this thought experiment on him, they say a lot about gravity in education websites, and they say, for instance, that on the surface, they talk about the surface of the Earth, right? That's why my thought experiment goes beyond that. But they talk about the surface of the Earth, and at that point, gravity has a certain value. They say then, well, if we were to shrink the Earth to a minimum size of, let's say, a marble, and again, they say then that at the surface, the gravity would be enormous, would be very, very high. Alright? So, but what about this? If you drill a hole in your mind through the middle of the Earth, from here to China, and you would travel down to the middle of the Earth, how is gravity functioning there? What's pulling at you? You know? My thinking is that the sun would be pulling at you, the moon would be pulling at you, but not the Earth. You would be free floating, like the Earth is. You know, the Earth is free floating in space. Why is it free floating? Because it has a certain speed around the sun. And it's, well, actually they claim that it's slowly falling into the sun. So it's not, if that is true, it would not be completely free floating. But if the Earth would have a either positive or negative value with regards to gravity in relation to the sun, it would either fly out of orbit or crash into the sun. You see? If it's moving too fast, then it would fly out of orbit. Or if it's too heavy, it would crash into the sun. If it's too light, at this speed, it would fly out of orbit. You see? So that's why it's free floating, because it's spinning around the sun and it just keeps going. And there's what do you call that? Negligible? I don't know exactly how to pronounce that. So let's say when a car moves, there's resistance from the wind, but when the Earth moves, there is hardly any resistance at all, because if there were resistance, the speed would slow down, and we would fall into the sun. See? So, but gravity is a difficult subject. They still haven't found where it's coming from anyway. So, yeah, Dan says the Earth is in the field of gravity from the sun. That's correct. That's why we don't fly off into space. But if the sun were much bigger or had more mass, for instance, we would have flown into it a long time ago. If the sun were smaller or had less mass, we would have flown away long ago. Do you see how perfect this solar system is? With all these planets flying in orbit perfectly? It's unbelievable how this came to be in the first place. Not even mentioning all the defensive systems that the Earth has, like a magnetic field for all the radiation from the sun, so that living beings can actually function without getting cancer, you know? Alright, let's try and continue. 2. Education, which means to bring out, to extract, to produce from a state of occultation. Johnson's Dictionary, 1845. From the Latin verb educo, to lead or draw out. 3. Occult, from the Latin verb occulto, to hide or to keep secret. 1. Therefore, education is the process of unocculting reality. Yeah. I don't know if you can unoccult reality, because reality cannot be occulted. The information about reality can be, but reality itself is as plain as the day of light, people. Polymath, which is from Greek, polymathes, having learned much. A person whose expertise spans a significant number of subject areas. Autonomy, ancient Greek, autonomos, from auto, which means self, and nomos, which is law. One who gives oneself their own law, is a concept found in moral, political, and bioethical philosophy. Bioethical philosophy, ooh, that would creep me out. The word politics, I'll repeat this from last week, means the tic from politic comes from ethics. That's where the word tics come from, ethics. Thereby you can see how it has degraded. Government is derived from the Latin word governare, a verb meaning to control, combined with mente, a Latin noun meaning mind. Government means to control the mind. Okay, I respectfully disagree here. If you look it up in correct dictionaries, you will find that it means the act of governing, government. The word meant, you can make up your own words here that end in meant, and you will see that it means the act of. Now, according to Mark Passio, it also means mind control, but there aren't many words that end in meant, that have even meant in them, where meant means mind. Okay, I can think of mental, but that's about the only one. Cybernetics. The term cybernetics stems from the Greek kybernetes, steersman, governor, pilot, or rather the same root as government. Cybernetics is a broad field of study which includes equations to control human behavior through the use of language. In other words, If the purpose of government is to control the mind, yeah, look, guys, the people in government are too stupid to control your mind. Alright? They need professionals to do that. It's not that simple. Most people in government are mind controlled themselves. They think that there is such a thing as a left-right paradigm and that it's not fake. They think there is a real difference between Democrat and Republican. Alright? Here in the Netherlands, the same thing. They think there is a real difference between the VVD and the PvdA. Alright? Just naming a right-wing one and a left-wing one. They really believe that. These politicians themselves believe that. Which means they are mind controlled. So how could government mind control you when they are themselves mind controlled? Doesn't make any sense, does it? You'd have to be mind controlled to be in government in the first place. Otherwise you wouldn't go there. You'd be so freedom oriented that government is just, it's blackness for you. You see? Next. Conspiracy, from the Latin verb conspire. To conspire is the act of occulting information in order to prey on those who have been denied access to the same set of useful information. See also cabal. Terrorism. This is the correct definition he's giving here. Government by force or coercion. If you look up the word terrorism in an older dictionary, you will see that it means a way in which governments control their population. Nescient. A lack of awareness or knowledge as a consequence of having never had the choice or opportunity to be exposed to it. Alright, so there's a difference between ignorant and nescient, you see? Had they been exposed to awareness or knowledge, it would have been integrated into their thoughts and actions had they only been given the opportunity. Yeah, that is if you don't run into cognitive dissonance, because most people can't handle that. And what they do is they just ignore it. They just deny it. I mean, you know, they will say, well, this cannot be true, otherwise I'm going into cognitive dissonance. You see? Ignorant. Someone who is aware of a concept or knowledge and yet does not integrate this information, and thus are resistant to learning by their own choice, or choosing not to learn. See also denial. Alright, so it wasn't so strange that I said ignore. Ignorant means to ignore. Right? Which means that you have been presented the information, but you're ignoring it. Liber, Latin word for book, is also the same Latin word used to articulate the idea of freedom, and thus is the root word of liberty. Reading books provides a road to cognitive liberty. Think also of the word library. In Dutch we don't use it that way, we say biblio. I wonder what the word biblio means. It sounds like Bible, doesn't it? Would those two words be tied? If the word government literally means, yeah, it doesn't, so let's just skip that. When secret societies occult information and use oaths as a method of ensuring the secret stays secret, they generate a power differential. If they prevent others from accessing useful information, thus the superclass which runs the world have superpowers. And then he claims here that they do. Their superpower is to have access to systematic method to attain certainty. while at the same time denying you access to the same liberating tools. The purpose of this lesson is to transfer the superpowers of the non-elected rulers to you, whereby you can inspect, validate, and if you so choose, install your own superpowers of learning. As a consequence, if you so choose, you can likewise empower others, with the opportunity to catalyze their own learning potential. Something is okay. If it's truly the gift that keeps on giving until someone decided to keep it a secret and assume power to control the rest of our lives without our consent. Alright, Akbar. I'll give it to you. Blah, blah. Blah, blah. Here it is. Copy this. Put that into Akbar. There you go. There's my source. And there are other etymological dictionaries that will give you the same explanation for the word government. Even if you take an older one. And by the way, why don't you use your own head for once? Think of a lot of words that end in ment. And see if you can replace ment with the word mind there. You can't. In all of the cases, except a few, it means the act of. So start using your own brain. Without access to the occulted information and the intellectual toolkit to allow you to take actions with certainty, it is a rigged game ensuring consistency, satisfaction, and order for those who occult information. Yeah, see? Act of government. That's what it means. Ment means act of, Akbar. And you can come up with a lot of words that end in ment. That's not what it says, does it? You're making that up yourself now, Akbar. Because that's not what it says. Without occult information, yeah, let's try this again. Without access to the occulted information and the intellectual toolkit to allow you to take action with certainty, it is a rigged game ensuring consistency, satisfaction, and order for those who occult information, and uncertainty, confusion, and chaos for those without access to the information and the tools of learning. Alright. Edward Bernays says, the conscious and intelligent manipulation of organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society. Those who manipulate this unseen mechanism of society constitute an invisible government, which is the true ruling power of our country. We are governed, our minds are molded, our tastes formed, our ideas suggested, largely by men we have never heard of. Largely by men we have never heard of. So that's not Bush, or Clinton, or anybody else in politics, or anybody else in quote-unquote government that is influencing your mind. Like I said before, they are mind-controlled themselves. Most of them. Otherwise you wouldn't be there. If you went into politics because you wanted to make a change, you are mind-controlled. And therefore you cannot control my mind or anybody else's, because your mind controls yourself if you go into politics. try and get a governmental position. I mean, even a teacher has more influence on people's minds than they do. This is a logic result of the way in which our democratic society is organized. Vast numbers of human beings must cooperate in this manner if they are to live together as a smoothly functioning society. In almost every act of our daily lives, whether in the sphere of politics or business, in our social conduct or our ethical thinking, we are dominated by the relative small number of persons who understand the mental processes and social patterns of the masses. It is they who pull the wires, who control the public mind. Edward Bernays, Propaganda, 1928. Walter Lippmann, we have learned to call this propaganda. A group of men who can prevent independent access to the event, can arrange the news to suit their purpose. In order to conduct a propaganda campaign, there must be some barrier between the public and the event. Access to the real environment must be limited before anyone can create a pseudo-environment he thinks wise or desirable. Walter Lippmann, Public Opinion. Alright, what he's saying here, that there is a difference between reality and reality as it is being presented to you. What question, Akbar? Did I miss something? Like I said, you're adding things. You copied from the dictionary, and it says, late 14th century, act of governing or ruling. Alright, act of governing or ruling, that's what it means, government, you paste that yourself. Then in 1515s, system by which a thing is governed, especially a state. And then you come up with, especially a state of mind. That's your words. That's not the dictionary words. You're assuming here. That's an assumption you make, which is incorrect. So your question is baseless. Alright? Okay, now he says I did. Alright. Bertrand Russell. Oh no, B.F. Skinner first. Inventor of the operant conditioning. Give me a child and I'll shape him into anything. B.F. Skinner. Alright, Bertrand Russell. Education should aim at destroying free will, so that, after pupils have left school, they shall be incapable, throughout the rest of their lives, of thinking and acting otherwise than as their schoolmasters would have wished. This is from page 50, the intended result of education. So you can check that. Norbert Wiener, author of Cybernetics, who focuses on equations to control human behavior and illustrates how corrupt our natural communication and illustrates how to corrupt our natural communication and feedback or learning process, whereby game theory is used to control the masses. Yeah, I believe it's in, and I was still wondering why the BBC put this out. But there is a series that the BBC put out. One of them is called Century of the Self. The other one is called The Trap. And that goes further into this game theory. It's interesting. Norbert Wiener, author of Cybernetics. As I have already hinted, one of the directions of work which the realm of ideas of the Macy meetings have suggested concerns the importance of the notion and the technique of communication in the social system. Macy meetings ties to mind control. MK Ultra. It is certainly true that the social system is an organization like the individual that is bound together by a system of communication, and that has a dynamics in which circular processes of a feedback nature play an important part. What? Nature play an important part. This I didn't read correctly. Let's try this again. It is certainly true that the social system is an organization like the individual that is bound together by a system of communication, and that it has a dynamics in which circular processes of a feedback nature play an important part. Okay? This is true, both in general field of anthropology and sociology, and in the more specific field of economics, and the very important work which we have already mentioned of von Neumann and Morgenstern on the theory of games enters in this range of ideas. On this basis, Dr. Gregory Bateson and Margaret Mead have urged me, in view of the intensely pressing nature of the sociological and economic problems of the present age of confusion, to devote a large part of my energies to the discussion on this side of cybernetics. If you are unfamiliar with what this quote means, click the link to the Macy conferences on Wikipedia and learn your way forward after that. This is from Aldous Huxley. A really efficient totalitarian state would be one in which the all-powerful executive and political bosses and their army of managers control a population of slaves who do not have to be coerced because they love their servitude. To make them love it is the task assigned in present-day totalitarian states. Yeah. And I'm telling you, in China they have succeeded with this. To ministries of propaganda, newspaper editors and school teachers, the greatest triumph of propaganda have been accomplished, not by doing something, but by refraining from doing. Greatest truth, but still greater from a practical point of view, is silence about the truth. Aldous Huxley, The Ultimate Revolution, March 20, 1962, at Berkeley. Alright. Yeah, I've already said that, Akbar. Government uses force. You know, they come with guns to take your taxes. Does that look like mind control to you? I mean, seriously, Akbar, give me one example of how government controls your mind. It doesn't. It's incapable of doing so. Because the people that go into government are mind controlled themselves. Most of them. Why would you go into government? Because you want to make a change in this society, and you think that by entering into politics you're going to accomplish that? Are you mind controlled or not? So how can somebody that is mind controlled control your mind? CIA is one that is more tied to mind control, yeah. And that's the end of the show. But CIA is not government, is it? It's a part of it. Mind control has more to do with what Huxley is going to say soon. In this outro, listen to what he says. That's mind control. Thanks a lot for listening, everybody. I'll be back next week. Take care.
So to say, mass-produced models of human beings arranged in some kind of